So China continues to target WION, and we continue to expose China. The Wuhan virus was made in China in a lab. Let that register. We've been telling you about the possibility of this for months. Now, a Chinese virologist has confirmed it. The virus was made in a lab in China. The scientist says she has proof that this virus was made in the Wuhan lab. The virologist's name is Dr. Li Mengyan. She's been researching on the Wuhan virus since 2019. She was investigating suspected SARS-like cases coming out of Wuhan in December 2019. It was then that she found out about the Wuhan virus. Dr. Li Meng claimed that she had warned her boss about the human-to-human transmission of this virus, but she was told to keep quiet. This was when Dr. Li Meng was working with the Hong Kong School of Public Health. When the pandemic spread, she fled to the United States. And now she has broken her silence about her knowledge of the virus. The Chinese virologist has answered many questions and raised many others. First, Dr. Li Meng says that the lab that made the Wuhan virus is owned by the Chinese government. Second, Chinese officials knew about the human-to-human transmission of the virus. What they also knew is that the Wuhan virus has a high mutation rate, meaning an outbreak was imminent if the virus was not controlled. There was someone else who had knowledge of all of this. The director of a lab affiliated with the WHO, the World Health Organization. So neither the Chinese government nor the WHO-affiliated lab did anything to sound an alarm. They watched quietly as the virus spelled chaos, first in China and then across the world. Dr. Li Meng claims that she had warned Chinese officials about the danger of the Wuhan virus. She also tried to tell the world about it, only to be threatened. What about the Wuhan wet market? Dr. Li says the theory about the virus originating from the Wuhan wet market is a smoke screen, a diversion.
Smoke and mirrors.
And she's not the first person to point a finger at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. In the month of March, the UK's former Chief of Intelligence Service, Sir Richard Dearlove, also warned people to not dismiss the idea that this virus could have been made in a lab. Another scientist, Giuseppe Trito, has made similar claims in his recent book. He says the virus was quote-unquote genetically engineered in the Wuhan Institute of Virology's lab in a program supervised by the Chinese military. And who can forget the doctor from Wuhan, Li Wenliang? He had warned the Chinese authorities about the Wuhan virus. This was before he himself succumbed to it. How long can China hide these stories? How long can China steer the global narrative on the Wuhan virus? How long can it hide the origin of this virus? How long can it hide the origin of this virus? All fingers are now pointing at the Wuhan lab, and the role of the Chinese officials is no secret.
Who was visiting the lab in 2015, y'all? Who that? Who that, y'all? For those who didn't see it in the back, that's who it is. God damn it. They paid the lab $3.7 for a bat project. Hold on. You named this Dr. Fauci, who was with Obama in 2015 in a Wuhan lab, where they paid the lab $3.7 million for a bat project. We know that well now, right? He is the deep state. You get instructions from him. Cut the crap, or to take down Trump. Wow. This crooked motherfucker. Wow. Fact check, motherfuckers. Why did Barack Obama, aka Barry, give $5 million to the Wuhan lab to study a virus? to kill Negroes and Americans because he's not a true American. Wow, this big ear motherfucker was in Wuhan in 2015. Hands in the cookie jar, goddammit. King Trump looking at that motherfucker like, you sorry bastard. King Trump knew that shit was a hoax, man. He knew. Most definitely, COVID gave this motherfucker a brain fog to this day.
Accountability, there's a lot that China has to answer for. For starters, mysterious disappearances. Where are all these people going? China is systematically removing anyone who is asking questions. The Dragon first reprimanded whistleblower Dr. Li Wenliang. He was trying to warn doctors about a possible SARS-like illness. The whistleblower soon died of the Wuhan virus himself. A day before his death, a lawyer, Chen Qishi, went missing. His videos of the Wuhan hospitals had gone viral, and China was not happy with what was happening. Next was Li Zehua, a reporter who used to work with the Chinese state TV. He reported on the death toll in Wuhan. Someone else has been missing too. A very high-profile person, the director of the Wuhan laboratory, Shi Zhengli. She's called the BatWoman of China, and she has not been seen in public since the outbreak. On Gravitas tonight, we bring you her story.
She is a renowned virologist. She's an expert on the coronavirus in bats. She's the supposed director of the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Shi Zhengli may have the answer to the question the world is asking. Did the coronavirus originate in her lab? But Shi Zhengli is missing. This is just one of the many things that's mysterious about her. Shi Zhengli is called China's BatWoman, and this is her story. She began her studies on bats in 2004. She studied all kinds of bats, the ones picked from caves, the ones from the subtropical regions in the south. Her research was aimed at understanding the SARS outbreak. She made a breakthrough in 2013. Shi Zhengli found bat feces with the virus 96.2% identical to the SARS-CoV-2. Yes, this is the same virus that caused COVID-19. In 2013, she began altering parts of the coronavirus. She wanted to study whether the coronavirus can be transmitted from one species to another. In 2015, she concluded that the SARS-like virus can jump from bats to humans. And there is no known treatment. Fast forward to 2019. On the 30th of December, she received some samples from healthcare workers in Wuhan. Test them urgently. These samples were from patients in Wuhan who were showing atypical pneumonia. This was a new coronavirus, the Wuhan coronavirus. By the time Shi Zhengli started analyzing the samples, it was too late. The virus had spread to the rest of China, and within months it had crossed seas. Did the virus escape from Shi's lab? Only Shi Zhengli has the answer, but she is missing. The virologist reappeared online on the 2nd of February. On WeChat, she said,
"I promise with my life that the virus has nothing to do with the lab."
A month later, she reportedly admitted to having several sleepless nights.
Could they have come from our lab?
The bat expert was asking herself this question. Soon rumors surfaced on social media. Some claimed she defected to the West, and she took along with her years of confidential research on bat coronavirus. Word was the Wuhan lab director was taking asylum at the US Embassy in Paris. Xi Zhengli quashed these rumors again on WeChat.
No matter how difficult things are, it shall never happen. We've done nothing wrong. With a strong belief in science, we will see the day when the clouds disperse and the sun shines.
She also posted 9 pictures, not of her lab or herself, but evidence of being in Wuhan. Some said the Chinese had muzzled her. This sparked another set of questions. Is Xi Zhengli safe? Another clarification on WeChat.
Everything is all right for my family and me, dear friends.
If that is the case, then where is China's BatWoman? Why has she not been seen in public in months? Can China say it has nothing to do with this disappearance? Bureau Report, Beyond World is One.
Barack Obama. We got the facts on that he funded the motherfuckers to experiment on this bullshit. And Fauci was in the bumping shoulders, right? We got the facts. There you are.
Biden says that it's safe and effective, but like he didn't know.
There's no proof. I mean, none of that stuff was safe and effective. We didn't do the typical test. Like the typical process, that's why it takes so long to get a product on the market. The typical process is all this clinical trial testing and stuff in a small population. This was just, let's test it on some, lab models, analyze and see if it works and stuff like that, and just throw it to the wind and see what happens.
People didn't know that. Like the patients doing it, they didn't.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sure somebody's going to get sued for that stuff eventually.
The lead regulatory scientist for Johnson & Johnson went into detail about how the federal government applied heavy pressure on Big Pharma in order to hastily create the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine, encouraging speed over efficacy or safety.
Do you have any idea the lack of research that was done on those products. Like, you shouldn't be surprised that this happened. It was pretty much the government kind of made a deal with pharmaceutical companies and kind of pressured the pharmaceutical companies, because we're not going to say no to the help, like the government. Like, the government's like, yo, these three big ass companies, we need help. We need to figure this out. You're solving this problem.
Was that Operation Warp Speed?
I mean, we basically just had a race to figure out who could solve it best. Like, people wanted it. We gave it to them.
The CDC has previously announced they're pulling the J&J vaccine from use in the United States. J&J claims this is due to the vaccine's declining use and the company's strategic shift away from the vaccines. But as you just heard, J&J's own regulatory scientist was well aware of the ineffectiveness of their own COVID vaccine.
There's something side effect that's going to happen, and it's more or less, all right, what's the worst side effect that's going to happen, and is that better than the benefit that the consumer's going to get? It's like, that's the interesting thing that I've found about it, because it's like, all right, you know what, cancer patient's going to die anyway, so quality of life is the question in that instance, as opposed to whether you're curing something. You're not curing anything at that point. It's just, all right, are you going to have a nicer 6 months?
Now, I caught up with Joshua Rye in Toms River, New Jersey, on the Jersey Shore, to get clarification on what he meant by his comments on Hidden Camera. What led him to say this? What led him to tell a total stranger that his product was not safe and effective? Here's a little sneak peek of how this went. This is one of the most extraordinary interactions ever, maybe rivaling the one that I had with the other guy inside Pfizer back 2.5 years ago. Are you Josh Rice from Johnson & Johnson? You're going to deny your identity?
Yes, sir.
And you said that your vaccine was not safe and effective. You said that. You know, where is he going? He's going to run away. He's going to the women's restroom. Are you confused? I am a human man. I am allowed to take a pee in the man's restroom. You shouldn't be surprised that this happened. We have no idea. People, I got it from your mouth.
No.
Stand behind what you said and explain to us what you meant by it. Undercover investigations like these carried out by our OMG undercover journalists are pulling back the veil on the corruption and lies in our government, in our corporations, in the pharmaceutical industry. Remember, sometimes 60, 70, 80% of revenue for cable news organizations and other organizations in the news business come from big pharma. The last time we did an undercover investigation into big pharma, like Pfizer, just a couple weeks later, I was indefinitely suspended from the organization I created. But we are going to report the news and tell the truth without fear and without favor. But we need you to reach out to our tip line at tips@o'keefemediagroup.com or send us a message on our signal. That's 914-491-9395. You can even connect with me on Minect, the app, and ask me, James O'Keefe, a direct question. I'll get back to you. One of our reporters will get back to you at the other tip lines. Thank you, and stay tuned.
Super safe and effective and all that stuff. John Campbell's got here's some concerning information about the vax that you didn't know. Get this. Did you know that there's 2 different batches? There was the batches they tested, and there's the batches they gave you. And they weren't formulated the same. Did you know that? Watch this.
So you're an academic, Josh, at Hebrew University, but basically you've got links with the States as well, though. And you've been studying some pretty interesting things, and the first one we wanted to talk about is the different processes that were used in the production of the Pfizer vaccine. Now, there seems to be process 1 and process 2, and this has got particular processes were used in the trials. Just give us a bit of background on that, Josh, if you don't mind, please.
Okay, yeah, sure. So the key point here is that in the clinical trial that Pfizer-BioNTech ran on their COVID vaccine, they used vaccine doses that were made with one manufacturing process, what you refer to as process 1. But what was given to the public after the trial was not the same type of doses. Instead, they used a different manufacturing process, an upscale manufacturing process they call process 2, and that was what everybody received when they got vaccinated. And now the question is, well, what's the difference between these two processes? Does it matter? And it probably does matter a lot. And I can walk you through some of the evidence of why we think it matters. But just to give you sort of the general background, and I don't know all of the technical details of this. I know enough to kind of understand it, but we all have learned about PC. So what do you need to do to make an mRNA vaccine? You need to generate mRNA. How do you do that? Well, mRNA is like a copy of a part of a strand of DNA. So you need DNA as sort of your backbone template that you can then create mRNA off of that DNA. Okay, so where do you get that DNA from? Well, you can, with the process one, they were basically using a PCR process to duplicate DNA, right? That's what they do with PCR. They want to check, do you have any of this remnant of DNA in your nose that we can say was, COVID, was SARS-CoV-2 or whatever, right? So they replicate it, right? That's the whole idea behind the PCR. And it's relatively clean to do it that way. And they were also using a very, very high quality system using these sort of magnetic beads to take out any impurities after that PCR process was used. Again, to create the template where then they use that to generate the mRNA. In process two, they use a different method to generate the DNA backbone, okay, where they basically have a DNA template that they put into this thing called a plasmid, which is a part of a bacteria, okay? And so when the plasmids can duplicate, and then the bacteria also duplicates. And it turns out to be a far more cost-effective, scalable way. You can just have, instead of having to put it in a PCR machine, you just have these big vats of, I don't know actually how big they are, but you have these vats of bacteria growing, and they can replicate very, very quickly. Wow. And then you take the plasmids and you take their DNA and they make it linear instead of wrapped up, and then they use that to generate the mRNA. But after that point, what they need to do is they have the plasmid DNA and they have the bacteria still in that goo, and they need to clean that out and purify it. And that's where they've seemed to have done a terrible job. And I don't know if you've been following any of the revelations that are coming out, where more and more researchers around the world are replicating this finding that there are high levels of this plasmid DNA remnants in the vials of the Pfizer vaccine.
Y'all are distracted with the bullshit ass Epstein files, goddammit, because they don't want these people to be held accountable for running an experiment hoax on the American people. Y'all are the ones being bamboozled with the Jeffrey Epstein files. Fuck that. We already know Trump's is a lady man. Goddammit, always been a ladies man. So we don't give a damn about that. Y'all take that motherfucking Jeffrey Epstein list and shove it up your ass, goddammit, because y'all trying to deflect that a lot of people need to be held accountable for this experiment that was released on the American people.
Have been tested. In addition to that, we know from Pfizer's own documents that they've submitted to various regulatory agencies that there's some residual lipopolysaccharide, otherwise known as endotoxin. This is the membrane. So what is the bacteria that they use for duplicating this? It's E. coli bacteria.
Wow.
And which is a type of bacteria that's known as gram-negative bacteria. And the membranes of gram-negative bacteria are highly inflammatory. They're called endotoxin for a reason, right? And so there are higher levels of this endotoxin in the process vials. And again, this is based on what we know from Pfizer's own filings to the regulator.
Just see if I've got this right so far, Josh, if we just run this past you. So the process one, they synthesize the DNA. I assume synthesize it in the right bases, in the right order. And then they multiply the amount of DNA with a PCR process. Now, I'm not a forensic specialist, but I think we probably do this in forensics, where there's a tiny amount of DNA found at a crime scene, for example, or in an archaeological specimen, which is a fascinating field. And they're able to multiply up the amount of DNA so they've got enough to sort of be able to recognize it. So they use this duplication process, and that PCR process, it's the same as is used in testing, where you duplicate the amount of RNA that's present. And of course, there's a debate about that and how much it should be duplicated and whether that can give rise to false positive results, of course, but leaving that aside. So here, the increased amount of DNA, they use that DNA to make the RNA. So the DNA is the code to make the RNA. So it's DNA makes RNA makes protein is the way it goes in biology. And that's trial process one. But trial process two sounds a bit more like making beer to me. you put it all in some big vat instead of using yeast. They use bacterium, E. coli bacteria. We believe.
Well, no, we know E. coli. We know a lot about their manufacturing method, and a lot of it came through the EMA data breach. Other writings about it. There's publications. We know.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So the process too, you kind of make a batch. Now, a plasmid is basically a way for transferring genetic material from one bacterium to another, as far as I understand it.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're using this kind of way. The DNA is in the plasmid, and that means you've got bacterial components there as well. And we don't want DNA from the plasmid. We don't want other things, like bits of cell membrane left over.
Right.
I would imagine if you did have cell membrane in any injection, we're not saying there's cell membrane in this, but if you did have negative cell membrane in an injection, that would make you feel pretty rough for a period of time.
It could, and
it's toxic.
We'll talk about that later, how that might be linked to some of the adverse events that came up and have been,
So they're saying that this is. So he just said that there's. Correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing is that there are two totally different processes for making the vaccine. The one that they tested, and then the one that they gave you.
Yeah,
it's not the same.
Yeah,
and the way we know this is from Pfizer's own data.
Yeah,
and now he's just said that this is being linked to adverse events.
Yeah, and it seems that they're doing this other way because it's more expedient, it's cheaper. Yeah. Even though it's going to have more adverse effect, their bottom line goes up, and it's just quicker, cheaper, and they can do it that way. I mean, that's what I think he's insinuating.
I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
But of course, the FDA says that the vaccine is safe and effective, Kurt. And it will keep you from being hospitalized, sick, or death. And it's fantastic. It's super safe.
It passes. I want to make this point very clear: is that when you're making a biological medical product or biologic, the process is crucial. In fact, some people say the process is the product, because you're dealing with these very complex, biochemical interactions, large molecules. I'll give you an example. Have you ever heard of the Cutter incident?
No, please tell me.
The Cutter incident, and there was a book written by one of the high priests of vaccinology in the U.S., Paul Offit, on this topic. But what happened? The Cutter incident happened with the original polio vaccines in the 1950s. So Jonas Salk, created this polio vaccine. They ran a trial on about 2 million children. It was very successful. And so then they turned it over to a few different labs, and they said, okay, now we need to make a bunch of this stuff. But they didn't provide them with the precise directions on how to exactly replicate Salk's process.
Can you believe that? So I know Kurt brought this up on the show originally. That's how I first found out about this. The first batches of the polio vaccine, not good. So go ahead.
So what happened? In the Cutter laboratory, they were making vaccines that had live polio virus. And when they injected them into kids, they got polio. There were over 200,000 kids who got short-lived polio, a few hundred who got permanent polio, and a few kids who actually died. This is not conspiracy theory. This is not anti-vax mythology. This is accepted history. And one of the key lessons that was learned from that is, when you're dealing with something complicated like a vaccine, a biological drug, you need to be very precise about the method. And once you change the method, you change the product. And you can't just assume that it's going to have the same effect on people. So you need to do another clinical trial on your new product. It's not the same product.
So that's where we'll end it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but I'm just going to show what John Campbell showed, because none of that's controversial. All that comes right from Pfizer's own data. Mm-hmm. And so nobody's is interpreting it. They're just reporting it.
Yeah.
Y'all get on over there and sub the Jimmy Dore Show on YouTube. All right? Y'all get on over there and sub. See what's happening. Give y'all a little sneak preview. Like I said, her wig came off. That's another topic in the game, and she ran off the goddamn court. But if y'all want to get some more stories, y'all get on over there to Jimmy Dore channel and sub, all right? And educate yourself, goddammit. Here's the channel right here. Peace.
You kids have certainly wound up all the loose ends in this case. Blasted meddling kids.
He was after the franc and jewels, which are woven into that tapestry.
Yes, might have gotten away with it too. If it wasn't for these blasted kids and their dog. He wanted to scare us off so he could pick up the land cheap. And I'd have done it too, if you kids hadn't come along. That's it. It was supposed to be in a carpet bag. Like, wow, you're rich, Mr. Stillwell. And I'd have found it if it wasn't for you snoopers.
Then this can only be one person.
Hank!
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 Oh, dag nabbit. That invention is worth a fortune. And it would have been mine if it hadn't been for those meddling kids. Mr. Roger Stevens, the TV station manager. And I wish you'd have minded your own business.
He's the dog napper.
You blasted kids. Why didn't you mind your own business?
Catching dog nappers is our business, Mr. Masters.
Is conspiring in the inky black of time most foul. Oh, and you meddling kids.
And I would have succeeded, too, if it hadn't been for you meddling young people.
We would have, too. That meddling mermaid had kept her fin to herself and never contacted you.
I would have too if it weren't for you, Comito Boys Quadquella.
Huh?
Loosely translated, it means meddlesome kids in Latin.
And I'd do it again if it weren't for the uncanny boy band knowledge of you meddling brats.
And I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling. What's going on here? And I would have succeeded, too, if it wasn't for your olfactory challenged sidekicks.
And I would have succeeded too if it weren't for you meddling schoolmates of mine.
No one would have ever suspected me. That is until you, meddling, gnome-hating, pirate-loving...
Yeah, Shrimpo, we got the picture. But I found your pathetic tale of lost dreams inspiring. It's gonna make a great movie.
A movie?